Hello, everybody, and welcome to Marketing with LinkedIn. Today, we are going to start the first of two different presentations, I guess you could call them, on how to use the world's professional social network. I have two very different sets of slides. This first one is more of the broad overview that you may have grown accustomed to in terms of looking at the different platforms. That would be things like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. That is this kind of presentation. But seeing as LinkedIn is probably the one that I know the best and have studied the most and used the most myself professionally, I have a whole separate set of slides that goes into more of the content strategy behind it. Because one, I mean, I know more about it than the others, but then two, the business applications for LinkedIn are really vast and are a little bit more applicable to students that would be watching this. Plus, any sort of social media role, work that you do, anything at all that you do in the social media space is going to require you to have some sort of experience, right? Something to show. And that often begins on LinkedIn. Even if you are an influencer on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or anywhere, really, um, where the rubber meets the road in terms of a business presence, that is most often to be found on LinkedIn. So let's go ahead and dig in. There's only about 12 slides on this, so it's not going to be super long. But to give you a quick overview, LinkedIn actually is the oldest social media platform that we look at in this course. It was founded in 2003, but as most of us know it today, it is actually owned by Microsoft, which bought it in 2016. Um, it still is largely a standalone company. You can find their offices across the country, most infamously in the Empire State Building in New York City. And it has really grown over the years, as you'll see momentarily. But LinkedIn uses a different, I guess, nomenclature for the people that use it. They call them members, and they exist in pretty strong numbers, 1.3 billion. Um, but it's also not the kind of platform that you sign up for and just start posting content. It's very different from a lot of the others. This is more about a professional identity and building relationships. It's very different. When people get onto Instagram, when people go on Twitter or X, and when people on Facebook, right, it is social first. It's because their friends are there. They see other people are there. They realize it's the place to be socially. LinkedIn, the entire reason for creating an account is different. It is with a professional mindset. It is something relating to your career. If you're joining for the social benefits, you are not joining for the right reasons. And I don't really think anybody joins it for that reason. Um, but because of the way that people use it and how it's so different, we end up with a very different kind of business model that the platform itself has. And that really begins with the fact that most of the revenue does not come from advertising. As you know from earlier parts of this course, like Google, which owns YouTube, and Meta, which is the parent company for Facebook and Instagram, though both of those companies get most of their revenue from ads. That is not the case with LinkedIn. It gets most of its revenue from memberships. Now, there is a free membership tier, and most people have that. But there is a slew of different options when it comes to paid versions. There is a basic premium membership, which in general allows you to see a little bit more of who's viewing your profile, a little bit more into the analytics. There's Sales Navigator. There's a premium job hunting opportunity. And then there's also a premium company page. So several different variations available to you in terms of spending money. And again, most general users don't have that. But it is something. It isn't. It is a really big driver of revenue for LinkedIn. And if we look at the numbers, it's nothing like what most of the other platforms are that we've analyzed in this course. Right? We're not looking at billions in terms of active users. We are looking at about 310 million active users. So that's slightly different. Now, when we look at growth, though, it's been pretty impressive over the years. When I first taught this course again in 2018, just to give you another example for how much the class has changed. LinkedIn was pretty much a footnote. It wasn't the class, but it was primarily used as something that I talked about at the end, where people could utilize kind of this last lecture that I had to build up their own portfolio and really utilize LinkedIn to help get jobs, because that was really what most younger people were using it for back then. Um, that is not the case anymore. You see pretty steady growth over the years. And now we have a lot of powerful people, a lot of decision makers for businesses, a lot of executives who use LinkedIn during the day, and they are not there because they're there for fun again. They are there for business. So that's another huge advantage to LinkedIn is people are there with a business mindset. So it's not as difficult to capture their attention from a business perspective. Now, what does this mean though for business? Well, I would argue first and foremost, it's where B2B can thrive. In all the platforms that we've utilized so far, it has been a primarily B2C dominated market. You think of Instagram, you think of TikTok, and you think of products. You think of people promoting actual products, things that anybody can buy. That is, I mean, I guess that is something that could still work on LinkedIn, but if there's one place where you see a different style of business that can thrive, it is here. B2B is where is really what can shine. Now we look at I have a bunch of different numbers here, and these come from a variety of sources. Because also LinkedIn is a little bit different in terms of like the numbers, the data that we get from LinkedIn. They come from many different platforms, including LinkedIn itself. So take that with a grain of salt. But when you think about when you think about the other platforms, it's a different type of company that we're reporting on, and it's also a different like a lot of these companies they completely live on these platforms. You have entire businesses that live and die with Facebook ads. You have companies that live and die with TikTok. And you have some that are, I mean, as we talked about with the YouTube creator economy, there is an entire industry of people that just work on YouTube. So it's a very different space there. Here, LinkedIn is dealing with the entire B2B world. So if we think about the people that are here with B2B, it depends on the size of the company, but your target audience is usually decision makers or other people that are in a buying position for a company. On LinkedIn, we have quite a concentration of those people. 10 million C-level executives, 180 million people that are in a senior level position of influence, and 80%, that's 4 out of 5 people that are on LinkedIn. Those are people who have some sort of authority and ability to determine and make those business decisions, which means those are the people that you want to sell to. Now the mindset, here, I mean, obviously you have people that make a lot of money, but the people are online in a professional buying oriented mindset. They are not scrolling for fun. They are not scrolling to get away from work. They are scrolling for work. And even if they claim that they're not, Like I will log on to LinkedIn a couple times a day, or I guess a couple times a week, and play some of the games. I inevitably end up on the feed looking for things, yeah, in my business mindset. It's just it's a very different orientation. But as a result, you end up as a marketer with a better target audience. And we've seen it with the results. The results kind of speak for themselves. We have, again, 80, similar as last time. 4 out of 5 B2B social leads come from LinkedIn. All of the others combined split the last fifth. So 80% of business to business lead generation on social media comes from LinkedIn, which is massive. Um, and not only that, I mean, this is not just a small consortium of marketers, right? This isn't just a couple people that have figured out the system. I mean, you have 89% of B2B marketers claim that they use LinkedIn for lead generation. Now, we don't know the exact number of like how that converts, but the fact that everybody uses it means that there's got to be some success here. So, a lot of numbers here that are worth thinking about, but really, this introduction is meant to uh, really dig into the B2B side of things. Of all the platforms that we've looked at, again, there are ways to make them B2B friendly, and there are ways to drive leads. However, LinkedIn is where it's going to be easiest and where it is absolutely the most common and where it's used the most. And that is where we will stop this first video. Coming up next, we're going to look at the actual pages. We're going to look at personal profiles, company pages, how they work together, and how you can create a full LinkedIn strategy.